President Faust,
members of the
Member
Harvard
of the Harvard
Corporation and
Corporation
the Board
and
of
Board of Overseers,
members of the
Member
faculty,
of the Faculty,
proud
proud
parents,
parents,
and above all,
all,
graduates. The first thing I
The
would like
first
to
thing
say
I would
is
like to
thank
say
you.
is thank you.
Not only has
Not
Harvard
only has
given me
Harvard
an
given me
extraordinary honor,
extraordinary honor,
but the
but
weeks
the
of
weeks
fear
of fear
and nausea I have endured
and have endured.
at the thought of
At the
giving
thought
this
of
commencement
giving
address
commencement address
have made me
have
lose
made me
weight.
lose weight.
A win-win
A win-win
situation.
situation.
Now all I
Now
have to
I
do is
have
take
to
deep
do is
breaths,
take a deep breath,
squint at the
squint
red
at the
banners,
red banners,
and convince
and convince
myself
myself
that
that
I am
if
at the
not
world's
of the world's
largest
largest
Gryffindor reunion.
Gryffindor reunion.
Delivering a commencement
Delivering
address is a great responsibility, or so I
or
thought,
so I thought,
until I cast my mind back to my own graduation. The commencement speaker that day was the distinguished British philosopher Baroness Mary Warnock. Reflecting on her speech has helped me enormously in writing this one, because it turns out that I can't remember a single word she said. This liberating discovery enables me to proceed without any fear that I might inadvertently influence you, to abandon promising careers in business, the law, or politics for the giddy delights of becoming a gay wizard. You see, if all you remember in years to come is the gay wizard joke, I've come out ahead of Baroness Mary Warnock. Achievable goals, the first step to self-improvement. Actually, I have racked my mind and heart for what I ought to say to you today. I have asked myself what I wish I had known at my own graduation, and what important lessons I have learned in the 21 years that have expired between that day and this. I have come up with two answers. On this wonderful day when we are gathered together to celebrate your academic success, I have decided to talk to you about the benefits of failure. And as you stand on the threshold of what is sometimes called real life, I want to extol the crucial importance of imagination. These may seem quixotic or paradoxical choices, but bear with me. Looking back at the 21-year-old that I was at graduation is a slightly uncomfortable experience for the 42-year-old that she has become. Half my lifetime ago, I was striking an uneasy balance between the ambition I had for myself and what those closest to me expected of me. I was convinced that the only thing I wanted to do was write novels. However, my parents, both of whom came from impoverished backgrounds and neither of whom had been to college, took the view that my overactive imagination was an amusing personal quirk that would never pay a mortgage or secure a pension. I know the irony strikes with the force of a cartoon anvil now. So they hoped that I would take a vocational degree. I wanted to study English literature. A compromise was reached that in retrospect satisfied nobody, and I went up to study modern languages. Hardly had my parents' car rounded the corner at the end of the road than I ditched German and scuttled off down the classics corridor. I cannot remember telling my parents that I was studying classics. They might well have found out for the first time on graduation day. Of all the subjects on this planet, I think they would have been hard put to name one less useful than Greek mythology when it came to securing the keys to an executive bathroom. Now, I would like to make it clear in parenthesis that I do not blame my parents for their point of view. There is an expiry date on blaming your parents for steering you in the wrong direction. moment you are old enough to take the wheel, responsibility lies with you. What is more, I cannot criticize my parents for hoping that I would never experience poverty. They had been poor themselves, and I have since been poor. And I quite agree with them that it is not an ennobling experience. Poverty entails fear and stress and sometimes depression. It means a thousand petty humiliations and hardships. Climbing out of poverty by your own efforts, that is something on which to pride yourself. But poverty itself is romanticized only by fools. What I feared most for myself at your age was not poverty, but failure. At your age, in spite of a distinct lack of motivation at university, where I had spent far too long in the coffee bar writing stories and far too little time in lecture, I had a knack for passing examination, and that, for years, had been the measure of success in my life and that of my peers. Now, I am not dull enough to suppose that because you are young, gifted and well-educated, you have never known hardship or heartache. Talent and intelligence never yet inoculated anyone against the caprice of the fates. And I do not for a moment suppose that everyone here has enjoyed an existence of unruffled privilege and contentment. However, the fact that you are graduating from Harvard suggests that you are not very well acquainted with failure. You might be driven by a fear of failure quite as much as a desire for success. Indeed, your conception of failure might not be too far removed from the average person's idea of success. So high, have you already flown? Ultimately, we will have to decide for ourselves what constitutes failure. But the world is quite eager to give you a set of criteria if you let it. So I think it fair to say that by any conventional measure, a mere 7 years after my graduation day, I had failed on an epic scale. An exceptionally short-lived marriage had imploded, and I was jobless, a lone parent, and as poor as it is possible to be in modern Britain without being homeless. The fears that my parents had had for me and that I had had for myself had both come to pass. And by every usual standard, I was the biggest failure I knew. Now I'm not going to stand here to tell you that failure is fun. That period of my life was a dark one. And I had no idea that there was going to be what the press has since represented as a kind of fairy tale resolution. I had no idea then how far the tunnel extended, and for a long time, any light at the end of it was a hope rather than reality. So why do I talk about the benefits of failure? Simply because failure meant a stripping away of the inessential. I stopped pretending to myself that I was anything other than what I was, and began to direct all my energy into finishing the only work that mattered to me. Had I really succeeded at anything else, I might never have found the determination to succeed in the one arena where I believed I truly belonged. I was set free because my greatest fear had been realized, and I was still alive, and I still had a daughter whom I adored, and I had an old typewriter and a big idea. And so rock bottom became the solid foundation on which I rebuilt my life. You might never fail on the scale I did, but some failure in my life is inevitable. It is impossible to live without failing at something, unless you live so cautiously that you might as well not. In which case, you fail by default. Failure gave me an inner security that I had never attained by passing examinations. Failure taught me things about myself that I could have learned no other way. I discovered that I had a strong will and more discipline than I had suspected. I also found out that I had friends whose value was truly above the price of rubies. The knowledge that you know emerged wiser and setbacks means that you are ever after secure in your ability to survive. You will never truly
You
know
will never
yourself
truly know
or the
yourself
strength of
or
your
the strength
relationships
of your
until
relationship
both have been
until both
tested
have
by
been tested
adversity.
by adversity.
Such
Such
knowledge
knowledge
is a true gift
gift
for all
for
that
all
it is
that
painfully
is
won,
painfully won,
and it has been worth
and it has
more than
been
any
worth more than
qualification I ever earned.
I ever earned.
So given a
So
time
given
turner,
time turner,
I would tell my
I would tell my
21-year-old self that
21-year-old
personal
self that
happiness
personal
lies in
happiness
knowing that life is not a
a
checklist
checklist
of
of
acquisition or
acquisition
achievement.
or achievement.
Your qualifications, your
your
CV,
CV
are not your life.
are not your
Though
life.
you will meet many
You
people
meet
of my
many
age
people
and
of my
older
age
who
and older
confuse the
who
two.
confuse the two.
Life is
Life is
difficult
difficult
and
and
complicated
complicated and beyond anyone's total control.
And the
And the humility to know
will
that
enable
will
you to
enable you
survive
to
its
survive
vicissitudes.
its vicissitudes.
Now you might think
Now
that
you
I
might
chose
think
my
that I
second
chose
theme, the
my
importance
second
of
theme, the
imagination,
importance.
because of the part it played in rebuilding my life, but that is not
But that's
wholly
not
so.
wholly so.
Though I
So I
personally will
personally
defend
will
the value
defend
of
the
bedtime
value of
stories to my
bedtime
last
story
gasp.
at my last gasp.
I have learned to
I have
value
learned to
imagination
value
in a much
imagination
broader
as much
sense.
more broader sense.
Imagination
Imagination
is not only the uniquely human capacity to envision that which is not,
and therefore the fount of invention and innovation.
in its
It is
arguably
arguably most transformative and revelatory capacity.
It is the power that
It is the
enables
power
us to
enables
empathize
to
with humans
empathize with
whose
humans
experiences we
whose
have never
experiences
shared.
we have never shared.
One of the greatest
One of the
formative
greatest
experiences of
formative
my life preceded Harry Potter,
Harry
though it
Potter.
informed much of what I subsequently wrote in those books. This
This
revelation
revelation
came in the form of
came
one
in
of
the
my
form of
earliest day
my
jobs.
earliest day jobs.
Though I was
Though I
sloping off
was
to write
laughing
stories
at
during
write
my lunch
stories
hours,
during my lunch
I
hour.
paid the rent
I paid
in
the
my early
rent in my
20s
early 20s
by working
by working
at the African
Research
Department
Department
of
and Amnesty
headquarters in
International
London.
headquarters in London.
There in my little
In my
office,
little office,
I read hastily scribbled letters smuggled out of totalitarian regimes by men and
by
women
men
who
and
were
women
risking
who were
imprisonment to inform the outside world of what was happening to them. I saw
I saw
photographs
photographs
of those who had disappeared
without
without trace,
disappeared without trace,
sent to Amnesty
sent
by
to
their
Amnesty
desperate
by their
families and friends.
families and friends.
I read the
I
testimony
read
of torture
testimony of
victims
torture
and saw
victims. I
pictures
saw
of their
picture of
injuries.
their injuries.
I opened
I opened
handwritten eyewitness accounts of summary trials and executions of kidnappings and rapes. Many of my co-workers were ex-political prisoners, people who had been displaced from their homes or fled into exile because they had the temerity to speak against their governments. Visitors to our offices included those who had come to give information or to try and find out what had happened to those who they had left behind. I shall never forget the African torture victim, a young man no older than I was at the time, who had become mentally ill after all he had endured in his homeland. He trembled uncontrollably as he spoke into a video camera about the brutality inflicted upon him. He was a foot taller than I was and seemed as fragile as a child. I was given the job of escorting him back to the underground station afterwards. And this man, whose life had been shattered by cruelty, took my hand with exquisite courtesy and wished me future happiness. And as long as I live, I shall remember walking along an empty corridor and suddenly hearing from behind a closed door a scream of pain and horror such as I have never heard since. The door opened and the researcher poked out her head and told me to run and make a hot drink for the young man sitting with her. She had just had to give him the news that in retaliation for his outspokenness against his country's regime, his mother had been seized and executed. Every day of my working week in my early 20s, I was reminded how incredibly fortunate I was to live in a country with a democratically elected government, where legal representation and a public trial were the rights of everyone. Every day, I saw more evidence about the evil humankind will inflict on their fellow humans to gain or maintain power. I began to have literal nightmares, about some of the things I saw, heard, and read. And yet, I also learned more about human goodness at Amnesty International than I had ever known before.
Amnesty mobilized thousands of people who had never been tortured or imprisoned their beliefs to act on behalf of those who have. The power of human empathy, leading to collective action, saves lives and frees prisoners. Ordinary people whose personal well-being and security are assured join together in huge numbers to save people they do not know and will never meet. My small participation in that process was one of the most humbling and inspiring experiences of my life. Unlike any other creature on this planet, human beings can learn and understand without having experienced. They can think themselves into other people's places. Of course, this is a power like my brand of fictional magic. It's morally neutral. One might use such an ability to manipulate or control just as much as to understand or sympathize. And many prefer not to exercise their imagination at all. They choose to remain comfortably within the bounds of their own experience, never troubling to wonder how it would feel to have been born other than they are. They can refuse to hear screams or peer inside cages. They can close their minds and hearts to any suffering that does not touch them personally. They can refuse to know. I might be tempted to envy people who can live that way, except that I do not think they have any fewer nightmares than I do. Choosing to live in narrow spaces leads to a form of mental agoraphobia, and that brings its own terrors. I think the willfully unimaginative see more monsters. They are often more afraid. What is more, those who choose not to empathize enable real monsters. For without ever committing an act of outright evil ourselves, we collude with it through our own apathy. One of the many things I learned at the end of that classics corridor down which I ventured at the age of 80, in search of something I could not then define, was this, written by the Greek author Plutarch. What we achieve inwardly will change outer reality. That is an astonishing statement, and yet proven 1,000 times every day of our lives. It expresses in part our inescapable connection with the outside world, the fact that we touch other people's lives simply by existing. But how much more are you, Harvard graduates of 2008, likely to touch other people's lives? Your intelligence, your capacity for hard work, the education you have earned and received, give you unique status and unique responsibilities. Even your nationality sets you apart. The great majority of you belong to the world's only remaining superpower. The way you vote, the way you live, the way you protest, the pressure you bring to bear on your government has an impact way beyond your borders. That is your privilege and your burden. If you choose to use your status and influence to raise your voice on behalf of those who have no voice, if you choose to identify not only with the powerful but with the powerless, if you retain the ability to imagine yourself into the lives of those who do not have your advantages, then it will not only be your proud families who celebrate your existence, but thousands and millions of people whose reality you have helped change. We do not need magic to transform the work. We carry all the power we need inside ourselves already. We have the power to imagine better. I'm nearly finished. I have one last hope for you, which is something that I already had in 21. The friends with whom I sat on graduation day have been my friends for life. They are my children's godparents, the people to whom I've been able to turn in times of real trouble. People who have been kind enough not to sue me when I took their names for Death Eaters. At our graduation, we were bound by enormous affection, by our shared experience of a time that could never come again, and of course, by the knowledge that we held certain photographic evidence that would be exceptionally valuable if any of us ran for Prime Minister. So today, I wish you nothing better than similar friendships. And tomorrow, I hope that even if you remember not a single word of mine, you remember those of Seneca, another of those old Romans I met when I fled down the classics corridor in retreat from career ladders in search of ancient wisdom. As is a tale, so is life. Not how long it is, but how good it is what matters.
It was matter.
I wish you all very good lives.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.